to just help me learn some lessons for life. It it actually was at the moment when I was going through it, I felt poor me. The universe was saying, it's not poor me situation, it's I am powerful situation.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Cosmic Chats. Today we have the delightful Aarti Vincent, who is a Melbourne comic originally from India. But today she's going to talk about when she had a health crisis and she simply changed her perception, which not only changed her health, but also the level of quality of life that she lives today. So how would you describe the taste of a banana to someone who's never had one?
Sweet and slimy. A bit, it's a bit, yeah.
Slimy. What else is slimy to you?
Frogs.
You think that's why she had to kiss a frog?
Yeah. Yeah, you have to kiss a lot of frogs to find your prince end of the day. And that's true, You do have to do that. You have to maneuver through a lot of slimy frogs. And you find your prince.
And there they are, with a banana.
Absolutely.
So,
nice and ripe banana.
Oh
that's
my
what we
gosh.
like.
Oh my gosh. But not too speckled because they look like there's some kind of disease. Yes?
Yes. Yeah.
So when did you have your first existential life crisis, but as a child?
Oh, that's a very deep question. Do you know what? I don't remember actually.
Okay, so the first one you remember?
I do remember, but to be very honest, I just feel that I don't need to talk about it over and over again. It's done, it's over, it's finished. I have moved on from there.
What we want to know is the reason why you had the crisis was because you changed your perception. It was helpful for you to change your life. And so we're looking at how you changed your perception of life as a result of an event. And it doesn't have to be traumatic.
Yeah. So, okay, I had this health thing years ago, and I wouldn't go into the detail of it. Like I said, it's done, it's over. But it helped me change my perception because I started being a victim in that situation. And I had to realize, the moment I realized that I'm not a victim, the moment I realized that I have the power to change it and I have the power to get out of it because I got myself into it, that is when I felt better and I was on top of the world. I just took my own power back instead of, being, oh, I'm feeling so bad, like instead of, saying, oh, why me? I said, no, I have the thing to get out of it. And I did it. And that has, today also when sometimes I feel low or something, I go to that place where I don't want to go. And I just think I have the power. I can get out of here. I have the power to choose my thoughts. I have the power to get out of this situation and I can do it.
So how old were you when this happened?
I was in my, it's just a few years ago, so early 40s.
Okay, so you were 28 and you had this health.
Yeah, can we just cut that age bit? Yes, I was in my early 28. Yes, let's.
Not at all. What we want here is unabandoned honesty, because that's how we relate one heart to the other. So you were having a health crisis. Now, when you say you brought it on yourself, did you walk out into the middle of the road and get run over, or was it something that happened?
I think it's just, it was something that happened, which had to happen to make me realize, to just help me learn some lessons for life, it actually was at the moment when I was going through it, I felt poor me.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what was happening. It was like, the universe was saying, it's not poor me situation. It's I am powerful situation. I have the power within me. Whenever you are ready to practice that power, you're out of this situation. And it took me a while to get out of it. A friend actually yelled at me. She said, you have to get out of it. She helped me a lot. And after a while, she had enough of me going, well, poor me. And she snapped.
Right. Now, how many months or weeks or years was that until your good friend, and that is a good friend, by the way, who says truth, right? Speak truth to power, right? How long had it been that you've been going through this health crisis until they said that?
About 6 months, maybe.
6 months. Okay.
Yeah.
So for some people that seems excruciatingly long, but other people who live in long-term chronic pain or have gone through horrendous physical challenges, or people who've even come back from being of service in the military, their bodies will not reset shape, but the mind, right? So we're talking about the mind, the perception. So that she basically gave you a smack on the body and told you to wake up. What do you think it was inside of you that actually listened?
I think the way she was very nice at the start, but the way she put it was like, oh my God, wake up, Aarti. Wake up, you have the power. I think that's a good friend, she was very kind at the start and she did everything, listened. But I think she was getting drained by me, So she stood up for herself and she said, look, I have to look after myself. I'm done. And you have to find your own power. She literally said, you are plugging into my socket right now and sucking my energy. Find your own plug.
Right.
And I felt bad at the time, but I knew there was truth in there, and I was like, I loved her for that. At the same time, I felt hurt as well, but I knew there was something there. And I did not speak to her for a few months. And I said, no, I will fix this and then I'll call her. Not out of spite, just out of, like, now I'm not going to call her as a, poor me. I'm going to call her as powerful me, me being me, standing in my own strength.
Absolutely. And if we talk about people who are long-term caregivers there, or even those who are married to an active alcoholic, right, they often end up in the mental establishments sooner because of the strain and the drain of being there for someone, right? So that's an excellent way to put it. Source, you have to find your own source, right? Connection to source. So what did you do to get this connection?
I think where I meditated and everything, and I think sometimes the universe just aligned.
So we had a little bit of a technical error, but Aarti was talking about meditation. And for those of you who might be curious about what Aware Meditation Inc. is, we have an image back here, very badly lit. Please, can we get someone to help us out? Thank you. Of an ebook called Vedic Meditation Stories. The links are all down in the description, and you can find out about, well, my story and the meditation practice and what the nonprofit is up to globally. We are going to be coming down to Australia and New Zealand, COVID possibly being cleared for November to do some large group teachings. So if you have contacts there of groups that might be interested, you just contact us below. But Aarti was talking about how during this health crisis, after her friend basically gave her a smack on the bottom, went in and was finding a way to change her victim consciousness. Pretty much. And you use meditation to help you, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And also, like you have to understand where you're, if you're putting too much attention on, oh, I don't have this, or I have a problem, that keeps on growing, I realized. But the moment you start ignoring it, you're like, oh, like you just have to acknowledge it, but you don't have to dwell on it,
You
like
mean
you
like the
acknowledge.
hamster in the room?
It's really like that. You just say, oh, it's there, but don't put so much attention on it. And the other friend of mine, there's another friend, and she's my sister-in-law as well. I have to give it to her advice also. She said one line which made me like, which was a game changer for me. She said, stop dwelling on it. When someone asks you, how are you feeling? Say, I'm okay. I'm fine. And that's what I started doing. So whenever my mom would ask me, how are you feeling? I'm like, I'm good. Anyone, I'm good, I'm great, I'm doing well. Because I think I had done enough of dwelling on it. I was ready to move out of it. So I was like, okay. So when someone asked me, I'm like, yeah, I'm good, everything is fine. But only to the person who can help me, I would say, okay, this is what's happening. So I went to the physio, and physio helped me a lot. And that is where and that was my place to tell my problems to her, because she would help, but the rest of the world who couldn't help me, I was just putting it out there and it wasn't helping me. But she was helping. Yeah.
You were able to discern where the inquiry was for yourself.
Yeah.
And then that became more fulfilling for you because the response was coming, this is the right person to talk about whatever, let's say it was your knee, I'm making it up, your knee, and this is what's happening. And they'll say, oh yes, that's what happens. You reach a plateau and it stays for a while. You're going to be frustrated. And, those of you who do read the ebook, I came to meditation because I had a huge life crisis with an injury, and I still have chronic physical pain, and I was going through a huge crisis, and I've forgotten my point at this point. Now I remember. I wrote an article that's in something called The Art of Being Yay, a friend of ours. And it was what I learned. I think 5 things when people ask how you are. And most of the time, they actually aren't asking how you are. Yeah. They're asking so they don't get what you have. It's too scary for people who are close to you if there is a physical issue that happens that is not redeemable to 100%. It's very scary to people. And finding your soul tribe or your support is not necessarily the family or the friends that you knew before you had an injury. And a physio would be one of those people. So
absolutely.
Through this, you had a shift in consciousness. Now, with this shift in consciousness, how then has it moved forward into other areas of your life after dealing with the injury?
Like in everything now, when I do comedy also, it helps me there maneuver, through the ups and downs of it. And I lost my dad last year, and
my condolences.
Thank you. And I wasn't able to go, for his last rites and everything, because it was April last year, when the whole India thing was hit by Delta, everyone had closed their borders and everything. I think learning from there helped me to connect with him. Again, I was like, no, I'm not a victim here. There is something there, It helped me to connect with my dad on a soul level. It's still like, I still feel sad about it. Like, I'm going to India on Monday, and I'm like, I was just crying like half an hour ago, because grief is something that I don't think you get over it, you never get over it, but you learn how to deal with it. Like, for me, I thought I'll go to India and I'll meet everyone, but he won't be there, and it's hitting me now. And I'm like, you know what? And I thought to myself, at least I am grieving because I loved him. Imagine if I did not. That would be so sad. That would be sadder, not grieving your father. The fact that I'm grieving him out of love is a blessing, So you can always turn things around and make them work in your favor. Like, this is a blessing that I love him so much. There's so much of love. That's a blessing,
That sounds to me that you've started to tap into the essence of joy, right? There is joy in the fact that you are grieving him.
There is, when I grieve, when I cry for him, I feel love. And I feel like I'm so fortunate to feel that, I'm so fortunate to have that relationship with him. It's like, it's really a blessing. And I send that love to him, and I can see that it's getting there, and I receive from him as well.
Yes, in the Vedic perspective, with grief, it's the body that is having a hard time. The body is always behind the mind, right? Once the mind settles down, then the body is dealing with whatever trauma or stress or fight or flight response it's having. And grief is absolutely a tipping point for many people. And unless anyone has gone through grief themselves, it cannot be understood. I had lost my mom, it's over a decade ago, right?
Sorry.
And thank you. Yes. And it was an experience of, if I didn't have a meditation practice, right? If I didn't have the capacity to go in and deal with the stress, right? And my experience was I got her 6 months longer. So that to me was the gift of everything. Exactly as you said, I had profound spiritual awakenings and shifts in consciousness, realizing that her death actually wasn't about me. And as soon as I got over that and what I hadn't done in my life and what I hadn't achieved or what I wanted to have happened, and my actual spiritual experience was, I was in a shower, something to do with water. Lots of things happen with, with water. And I was feeling so sad. And I was like, oh, but I haven't done this. I haven't got the granny annex. I haven't, I don't know, become someone big and bought her a house and all these things that I wanted to do for her. Right. And then I was like, oh, but I love my mom so much. Why? And then I realized how much love she had for me was tenfold what I was feeling. And that was a huge feeling that I had for her. And then I realized that if it was her time to drop her body and go home, that entity, energy, whatever you wish to call it, that has love for her, infinite amount of times larger than she loves me. And my mind went, like, I can't even comprehend that kind of love. Like, my body would just like explode, right? Because it's too much. And in that moment, then I started to cry, and I realized, then who was I to stop her from coming home to unconditional love? Who was I to stop someone else having that kind of experience of love? And when that happened, it was such a shift in being able to be more present and enjoy it, right? And even through that, when it did happen, it took the body at least a year, right? It was when I went back there and she wasn't there, right? Or then being close to her husband who was surviving, right? And then realize, where can I find my mom in other people, right? And
Absolutely.
realizing there were certain things that she had taught me that other people aren't reciprocating. And then the grief of that. And then what turned around was, well, how do I then embody that in me? Because if I can't get it from someone, then that's because I'm not giving it. And so one of the things she was remarkable at was giving gifts. Now, you don't have to get something pricey, but she would know, let's say, Aarti, you had a certain sweet tooth for a particular type of, I don't know, candy you can only get in India, let's say, right? That would be there for you on your birthday, right? Whatever it took, she would be like, I'm going to get that. And she really understood the joy of giving because she knew, but for her, it was about, how do I do this? Now, I thought that everyone else was just a horrible person because why are you giving me a dolly when I don't like dollies? And those of you who don't know what a dolly is, it's a doll. We call it a dolly, right? Yeah. I was like, what? You never thought of me. But it wasn't until she passed that I realized, whoa, she had a very special gift, right? To see that. And even today, when people talk about Christmas or other areas of being like so commercialized, all I say is, you don't understand and have never experienced the joy of giving. Because it's actually not about money. Because if you will then find an excuse to give something to someone, because it feels so good when someone else reciprocates this, you know, like little kids do. Oh my God, right? We all love that abandoned, free, amazing gratitude and sense of awe and magic, whatever you want to call it. That's what that is. So I had to start recreating that, which I'm so surprised I actually have with my stepdaughter is amazing at it now. But that's her, not me, because she didn't have to reciprocate that, right? And so it's a double joy for me that someone is like, I knew you would like that. I was like, gosh, so good at this. Those elements, you know, the going back when they weren't there, that took a few years. And honestly, the sooner the better.
Just no, true.
Get over it. So it's going to be fascinating as you've been preparing for your trip. How have you been interacting with relatives that you've still been able to keep this shift in consciousness of no victim mentality?
You know, I was very fascinated. Like you try and find your like you said, you tried to find your mother in other people, you know, like physically, how can I find her? I started connecting with my auntie, my father's sister, you know, and I would just call her, I'm thinking of Dad, and she would tell me stories from his childhood, you know, and that's very precious. I'm getting to know him more and more and more with relatives and everything, you know, like I'm here in Australia and my parents, I mean, my mother is now in India with my brother and every relative is in India, you know, but the way people talk about him, oh, he was this, he was that. And that's how I connect with him. And I'm like, oh, that's so lovely. And I like exactly what you said. You connect with his characteristics. I connect with his characteristics, you know, like he was funny, he was clever, he was very quick-witted, you know, he was his own person, you know, and again, very giving, selfless giving, you know, like I was like, oh my, I'm like, I can't do that one just yet, you know? But I'll take the clever and quick wit and funny you, but selfless giving is like, oh. He had a massive generous heart, you know.
Yes, well, the selfless giving, we know we have to be mindful of saying, you know, there's a fine line of martyrdom and then another way to become more victim, right?
Absolutely.
But there's the other side of it. If he really had tapped in to what you have tapped into, which is that joy, that feeling of helping someone, right, from the soul, because we literally cannot take any of this stuff with us. What we leave is what that person, like you have with your dad, that soul connection of that person, right? That's what we leave behind. And I did get to teach my mom the meditation in hospital before she passed. And
that's beautiful.
Yes, it was remarkable because I asked her how it was, and her response was horrible. I was like, what do you mean horrible? She's like, my heart, it kept beating really fast. I said, we should probably get a doctor or a nurse then. Turns out she needed a blood transfusion. And we caught it early on. And then we had like 6 more months after that. So sometimes when people think meditation is about sitting cross-legged, sitting upright, being like this person we're not, it's not. She actually listened to her body, right? She was pausing enough to go in to listen. As a result, we got more time with her, right? And so people say you can't take it with you, and I got to teach her something that, you know, she had an experience of. And all the way, I will say, the week before she passed, she was in her bed asking people, well, how are you? What are you doing? You know, no one's perfect. She definitely she wasn't a perfect person, but she knew it was too boring to keep talking about not being well. Because that's not living in the body you have right now. That's trying to move away, right, from life, what I can't do. And I too had that experience when I had got hurt. I stopped thinking about what I can't do and just adapt, right? So one of them was carrying, like, they would have, like, you know, for water in a big jug, right? We'll put it in the fridge. And I just, it hurts my wrist, I can't. So it's like, well, we just put it on the faucet then, on the tap, rather than have to struggle. Or you go get water, because you don't drink water out the tap in Los Angeles. And then you don't have to do that. So you work around it. And it got to a point where there are so many things that I would work around. I forgot I don't live a normal life. Because that's not healthful. It's not helpful. Right? And we might as well get on with it, right? But if I hadn't had that experience, I too would not be the person I am now, fully realized. It was a huge shift in consciousness. Have you found with your life now and the people around you that some of them found it too hard to be around, shifting that against victim mentality, that they were wanting that because that was who you used to be?
Can you repeat that question?
Yeah, I would too. I would ask to repeat it as well. That was so convoluted. That was like we went on a snakes and ladders, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Who knows what I'm really asking?
Sorry.
Why would you be sorry? That was the most ridiculously asked question I've done the whole time, the way it was phrased. Let's start again. Did you find when you had shifted your consciousness out of victim mentality that you had lost friends and people around you because it was too hard for them to think like you?
You know what? No, I did not lose them. I became more accepting of them the way they are. I didn't want them to change because they were going through their process. And because I had been there, so I had a more understanding and compassion and acceptance. You know, like, just because I have changed, just because I have gone out of it, doesn't mean that everyone else needs to.
Right. That is a very, very valid point. What I'm trying to get at was, did they have a reaction that you were not responding the same way as you used to Were there any
No,
people? No.
no,
Okay.
no. They were like, most of them were like, they would ask how, and I'm like, I'm good. And they were like happy because, like they wanted things to work out for me. So no, I did not lose anyone like that. No.
Very good. Or
Yeah.
they were glad because they didn't have to live in the fear of you possibly not healing.
Mm,
Right? Because a lot of grief is about
mm,
our own mortality.
mm.
Right? So grief
Yeah.
isn't only someone died, it's a grief of, oh, the knee or whatever doesn't work the way it used to.
Mm,
Right? Even if it
mm,
comes to, oh, suddenly got to start putting glasses on. Right?
mm.
Oh, I used to be
Yeah.
able to see things whenever I
Yeah.
wanted.
Yeah.
There's grief. Most of the
Mm,
time, we don't even need to read what's there anyway. It's just
yeah.
advertising, right?
Yeah.
What would you say to anyone who is going through something and they're feeling right now like this is a bunch of hocus pocus, changing the mindset's not going to clear it? Before you had this shift and your friend sort of woke you up, what would you say to yourself back then, or to someone else who's going through something to help them?
I would say, look, we all go through things to become stronger. Sometimes we have to, but if you shift your mindset, read some good books. I'll tell you one thing, like sometimes that's where we were when we got disconnected. So a book fell on the floor. Yeah. And it was called Heal Your Life. You can heal your life by Louise Hay. And I had that book for years and I read it a few times, and it says, love yourself, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, close this book, put it on the shelf, Do you know what I mean?
Why is it falling on the floor now?
Yes. So I just picked it up, and you know what? Instead of saying, oh, another hocus pocus, I opened my mind to it. And I said, this book has fallen on the floor for a reason. I started reading it from cover to cover rather than, not reading. And I would say to people who are going through, like, just talk to the relevant people about your problems, not to the entire world, because you're just putting that energy out, Talk to people who can help you, just one or two people. Choose wisely, and try to focus on what you want, what you are like. Try to focus on what is good for you. How do you picture the outcome? I've heard stories where a doctor told someone you can never walk for your entire life, and the person did not believe them. They visualized themselves running, and sure enough, they were. Every morning they did the ritual. It's true stories I've heard. They visualized themselves running after doctor had told you won't be able to walk, and sure enough they were running. So believe in that. Believe in the power of your mind, how your mind can control everything. Believe in the power that you have the power to control your mind and use it as a tool for your good. So use your mind for your good. Use it as a tool for your good. You have got millions of thoughts to think from. Choose it that will benefit you.
In reality, they're actually the same stressors that are just recycling with a different story to back it up, right? Yeah. It comes down to, I'm not going to be loved. I'm going to be on the streets, right? Bad things are happening. I'm not good enough, whatever someone's story is, right? But yes, using that as a tool, because ultimately the body is not designed to live forever, right? Which is actually part of the joy of having the body, right? And luckily in the meditation we teach, we don't say you can't go to a doctor, you can't do all that stuff. No, absolutely, no. Because we need both, right?
Yeah,
both
absolutely
to help us. And my experience has also been, I am a great teacher to a lot of health practitioners, right? How I end up at that person's door, they're learning to, everyone is coming together for something. you know, and the navigating. And I think I said to my friends the other week, well, I'm just waiting for you all to catch up. They said, what? I go, well, as the bodies get older, you're going to start dealing with things that I've been dealing with for, you know, 20 years. I'll probably outlive you all. Because a big part of it has been my identity is not about what I achieve in the 3D, what the prestige is, how I look with that. It's more about how do we find that love as much as we can. And the creative visualization you were talking about, we do some Zoom workshops with that, which is a little different, where we go into listening to the soul, right? Because the creative visualization that works is when the whole vibration of your being is in a line with it. So as a child, I didn't realize what this was, but I would do it. And I remember the night before a running race, I just visualized myself, you know, going through to the finish line and winning, right? Now, I didn't win, but I came third, but usually I would come 12th, right? But because I had spent time just visualizing my body doing that, and I think that is the perfect example with creative visualization. We have to feel it inside. It has to be honest. So if we say we want $1 million, right? If we really don't, because we know it's going to cause a lot of problems and we're quite happy, no matter how much you focus on it, it's not going to resonate within you, right? Because that soul may already know that doesn't fix them. It doesn't make them happier, right? So the $1 million would be, but if there is a connection, and that's actually how we as the nonprofit got the money to go down under, was I found myself, I had been doing a bunch of creative visualization to get $10,008, actually. That's what I wanted. And then you do the magic, which is you let it go. The hardest part. And I found myself at a game show. I had not even planned to really be on a game show. And it was all basically luck, right? And I could feel that maybe this money was supposed to go to the nonprofit, because they said, what would you do with the money? I was like, oh, I'm going to give it to the nonprofit. 2 weeks time, we're going to Boyle Heights, which is an area of Los Angeles that everyone knows, to teach meditation. And everyone shifted. And it got right close to it. And I thought, they're trying to help the other people, but I feel that it's for me. So now we call that like tapas, but it's really, you know, or up the ante. I then had a little creative visualization chat with the universe and said, okay, I always said we would go global. If it is part of my destiny, with all the people who helped fundraise before, and we're supposed to go down under, and I win it, I'll use it for that. That's what I'll do. And then I let it go. And before you know, the next thing I was called up and I ended up winning the money.
Wow.
So I could totally cheat and just take the money for myself and go on holiday, but I don't mess with those kind of gifts that are given. So this is why we're working on coming down to wherever there is a need and doing that. And who knows, again, like you said, letting go of what it's supposed to be, this amazing thing, and seeing what happens is the magic. But lots of creative visualization doesn't go back to where it does. It does go back to the Vedas. It goes back to that vibration. You know, we are all energy. Vibration is everything. When we connect into that, and it might not have someone healed walking, you know, that, but it might then have you actually doing an activity you didn't do before. Right?
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
And it's very, very powerful. So I want to thank you for joining me and us today on Cosmic Chats. And those of you who have loved Aarti, which how can you not?
Thank you.
Seriously, please write fabulous comments in the comments box, and please subscribe and share and tell all of your friends to watch it and share and support the channel. And if you have any words of wisdom, please let us know. And thank you, Aarti, for joining us on this episode of Cosmic Chats.
Thank you, Paula. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you. It It really was.
Why would it not?
I know.